Welcome back to East Coast Adventures. This is the Dirt and Vert podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Matt.
And we have a special guest today, Amy Hamilton. Amy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? And actually, the biggest thing is tell us how you got into running, too.
Well, I think I'm just your normal human. I was a field hockey and lacrosse athlete in college, and when I couldn't do those sports anymore and I graduated, my senior year in college, I trained for a half marathon between field hockey and lacrosse season. So that was my first running experience. And then I said, I'm going to train for a marathon. So I just pulled a random training plan off the internet, and in 2000 was my first marathon. And I love to share that because you'll laugh. I think it was like a 4:09 marathon. I couldn't walk the next day. And obviously from there, I coached collegiately for 5 years. So, running was it was a discipline. It was something easy to do. It's something to train for. I think, I was that kid. I loved to practice as much as I loved games. So running was fun. I loved the training as much as the race. I have 3 children, so I just kind of ran half marathons, 10Ks, did a duathlon series with biking and running. And then decided to kind of get serious about the marathon. So in 2011, I qualified, I think with a 3:19 for Boston and New York. And I ran those in 2013. Best marathon time is 2:57 at Boston in 2013, which is a pretty emotional marathon. And then in 2017 is kind of when I got into ultras. Went through a pretty tough health ordeal and a divorce, and that kind of put me on the trails. And I still love marathons. I just went back and did Boston this year. So I think they're crucial and very helpful to the trails. You all know training speed is always important. So I still love to throw marathons in, but I love the trails. I just think, that's my happy place.
That's a pretty cool story. So your very first marathon is 4 hours.
4 hours.
What was your training for the marathon?
I think it was a Hal Higdon plan. I mean, it was just, I pulled it off the internet. I followed it. But at the time, I didn't know anything really about speed work. I mean, I was just a lacrosse and field hockey kid. And I mean, you run for those sports.
Yeah.
I'm very type A. As I've gotten older, I've gained wisdom and having a coach myself has helped me do better at being smart, recovery, those type things. But I mean, it's crazy. I mean, at that time, I didn't really know much about as far as speed work and training and making it personal. I just followed this plan, and that was the best I did at the time, which is, I think it's good to share that though, because, being consistent and continuing to plug away and chip away, you get better.
That's exactly it. That's how me and Matt have learned.
Yep.
We've had, we kind of did the same thing getting into ultras, and I've still never ran a marathon.
Really?
I went from a half marathon into ultras and was just kind of like, I was destroyed after my first one. I ran a 50K and it was like, I'm like you, it's 5 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm walking the last 3 or 4 miles, just like, what have I done? This is awful.
Yeah.
I feel terrible. And then next week, I'm like, I think I could do better.
Oh, yeah.
I think I could do better. I know. And then, for me, it was learning to run slow for the hundreds. Like on easy days, practice running 9-minute miles. I thought, you got to be kidding me. So, that was my biggest problem, is I always wanted to go out and run fast, so you just learn these things over time. You're always a student, I think, as an athlete, always.
Did she just say 9-minute miles? I think she ran pretty fast at Yeti 100, much faster than a 9-minute mile, but we'll get to that later.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you started out road running, and then
Mm-hmm.
you go through a divorce, and you turn into a trail runner. Now, what year was that?
2017, you will laugh. Mountain Masochist was my first trail run, which
Wow,
I can't believe.
you picked an easy one.
Yeah, yeah, it was not easy. I think I finished in 10 hours and I walked some, weather changed. I knew nothing about in race nutrition, but I got through it. That's the point.
Yeah,
Now,
And I was
that's a
stoked after.
really hard race to do as your first one.
I don't
It
know nothing
is.
about this race, so what is it?
Oh, it's probably 92,000 or 9,200 feet of gain, 7,000 in loss. It's a lot. It's Hellgate, David Horton's races. You've got to know them.
You've never
He's
heard
got
of
a
it?
whole
That's good.
series of
Oh,
them.
you got to look it up. It's an extremely hard.
Yeah,
It's a very
it's
hard
pretty
race.
tough. A lot
Hmm.
of fire roads. There is some single track. It's pretty tough. And
Yeah,
I will
think
say
about that
technical is
elevation. I
not.
mean, that's 9,000 feet in, and that was is that a 50K or 50
It's a
miler?
50 miler. Hmm.
50 miles. So 9,000
Yeah,
feet in 50 miles. So that's almost equivalent to like Blood Rock, like
Yeah.
20,000 feet in 100
yeah.
miles.
It starts like in the Lynchburg area, and then you end up in Lexington. Like it's tough. It's a good
And
one.
that didn't scare you away from trails and ultras?
No, no, I love challenges. So yeah,
So you started road running then right out of high school?
college. So
Right out
I
of college.
played. Yeah, so I played field hockey and lacrosse in college, and then I graduated in '98. I'm old. I'm telling you.
Hey, that's when my brother
um,
graduated.
yeah. So I just picked up running. There were some girls that ran a half marathon that were a year ahead of me, my senior year in college, and they said, "Hey, do you want to run this half marathon?" I'm like, "Okay." It was in February, and so I ran that. That was my first kind of running, experience. And then once I graduated, I said, "Hey, I'm going to train. I need something to do." Because I love sport. I love challenges. I love training.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So when was your first attempt at a 100 miler?
Oh gosh, do we need to go to ultra signups for that?
Well, David's got that pulled
Don't
up
worry,
right
I
now.
have it pulled up
So,
about here.
and I've talked
Let-
about this on other podcasts. I attempted 400s before I completed my first one. And let's see, Zion, Rocky Raccoon, Javelina, Yeti, the rain year, which we've had a couple of those. So my biggest struggle was, I had done some 50 milers, JFK. I went on to do some other ones, and I managed them, got through them. I do nothing of, I'm on point with nutrition as far as eating. Throughout your day. But as far as in race nutrition, even when I did road running, I'm the most minimal person you'll find. I don't carry a phone when I run. So that was my missing link. And I can remember most of these Rocky Raccoon, I was at the 8 hour mark, 50 mile at the 50 mile point. Zion, gosh, it snowed and rained. I was in first female doing well, but usually about 75 miles is when I would break down. And I was really frustrated because you all know in ultras, a lot of it is it's a mentally tough
Yeah.
thing. You have to develop your mental toughness. You can train and you can be ready physically, but a lot of it is up here. And I felt pretty defeated. Pulling from a race is not really my style. And so, but I mean, it was to the point where I couldn't walk or something would break down. And I mean, I just couldn't figure out what was wrong. I thought, what's going on? Like, am I not tough enough? But it was nutrition. It's laughable. I mean, I would go 2 hours, not really drink anything. I mean, I had no really plan. And I didn't really do that for the marathon, even the 257 marathon. I think I did one gel in that marathon. So that is when I sought out a coach. Pat Reagan is who I work with, and it changed my life. So now I do about 250 calories an hour. Um, if I can get 60 to 80 grams of carbs in an hour, I'm doing well. But that has been the biggest change in my ultra career. I mean, it's life changing. I'm like, wow. And I mean, a lot of people, I think, probably don't give it enough attention. You have to, so I practice this. So every long run on the weekend, I wear my pack and I practice my nutrition as though I'm racing. And so, that's never a concern for me in a race. If it's cold, I know what I need to do. Usually it's 16 ounces of water in that hour. Obviously, if it's cold, it may be a little less, but I've got that. I feel like I have that down to a T. I know what my stomach likes and I practice it. So it's not scary going into a race going, oh gosh, what's going to work. That has been a huge, huge change for me.
Well, you say, it's when you've done your first 100 or whatever, you weren't eating and you went 2 or 3 hours, but that's really easy to do when you're in a pity party and you're in your head and, life's terrible and everything's hurting. It's easy to not think about, you're not thinking rational. You're not like, you don't think about food. You think, oh, my foot's killing me or my leg's hurting or my hips, I'm hobbling, and you forget that stuff. And it's amazing how much food can change your whole mood and your whole feeling. So, I mean, with a coach, that makes a huge difference. I mean, that's, that's the same thing I try to do, 200 to 300 calories an hour. I sweat a lot, so I drink a lot more than 16 ounces in an hour most of the time. Sometimes I will drink 2 whole 16-ounce bottles in an hour. It just depends on how hard I'm running. But it took me a long time to figure that out. And there's also that limit of too many calories, and then you're looking for that porta potty at the next aid station. So,
or you're throwing up everything,
or you're mad and you just throw it up everywhere.
It's also easy to do at the beginning of a race too, when everything's feeling great, that you get behind on your nutrition, where you don't drink or you don't eat, and then that 3-hour mark comes and you're like, oh crap, something wrong, and then you're trying to play catch up.
Matt takes more salt than anybody I've ever met in my life. I think if we had like a salt block just to put out there for him, I'm pretty sure he would lick it every lap.
I would.
So
I'll just take chunks out of it.
But so do you have a hydration and nutrition fave? Like which ones do you prefer?
The Goo Octane, I love that. Honestly, the Yeti 100, that's pretty much all I did. When it's hot, I don't like the gels. Lay's potato chips, they taste good, maybe a couple of those, but the Goo Octane, I love it. I absolutely love it. It's my go-to.
Favorite flavor?
I tell you, I love to mix a scoop of tea with the strawberry hibiscus. So it makes like a strawberry tea.
I haven't tried that. So the Summit tea is my favorite. I use the Summit tea all the time.
It always tastes good. If it's cold, it's good, right? If it's hot, it's good. That's probably my base. That is my favorite. But, all the other ones I don't mind. But yeah, try a scoop of the strawberry with the tea. It's good.
I'm going to have to try. I've not mixed anything. So that's a game changer, man.
Well, all I ever do is grape and lemon berry. Those are the two I usually do.
I don't know if I'd mix those two together.
I probably wouldn't. I did try that Summit tea. I got like one of those sample packs, and it had all of them in it. The tea wasn't bad.
See, I think you can mix the tea with anything.
And I hate tea.
You could do the tea with lemon berry. You could do the tea with grape. You could do the tea is
the tea wasn't bad when I tried it. I tried it during training run, and it wasn't bad. So I guess I'll take back all the make.
We'll get him on board for much longer, Amy.
That's right.
I don't know.
They have the liquid gels. Have you tried those? It's almost like a water consistency.
I tried 2 of them. I couldn't do it.
You couldn't do it?
I could not do it. I tried the cold one and orange. I love orange. I think it's orange. Mm-hmm. I love orange. And when I tried it, I'm like, oh no, this ain't gonna work.
Well, I'm a big fan of goo gels. So a lot
Yes.
of times I will do, I'll do the goo Roctane Fuel, the powder,
Yes.
the drink mix,
And then
or I'll do Scratch. Scratch is my other fave. It just depends on
okay.
how I'm feeling for the day and what I'm doing, if I'm ready for a change and I'm whiny.
Yes.
But goos, I'll absolutely, like no business last year, I
Yeah.
ate an entire case of goos in the first 12 hours.
That's
So
awesome.
it was like 24 goos in the first 12 hours.
Yeah.
But then they're at night, it's a little different story. I was all about
Yeah.
soup and broth, but
Yes. Broth is
I'm a
good.
big fan of goo. I mean, they know what they're
Yeah.
doing. They've been in the business long enough, so
They do, and I think the amino acids like in the Roctane, I'm telling you, I think that makes a difference. I don't know what it is. I've tried others, but I really like it. I like that. It's my favorite. And the waffles are good when it gets cold. When you're
love
tired of
them.
everything else. Yeah,
He can't chew them
I
apparently
cannot chew them.
after he's in a
yeah,
race, but I
Like
love
I
them.
can eat them like maybe the beginning or something like that, but then I put them in my
yeah.
mouth and it's just like dust, dust, and I'm like, nope, I'm done with this. Nope.
It's all the salt he's taking. That's the problem.
Yes.
No, if I
Yeah,
don't take salt, my body literally just stops.
yeah.
Like it is cramping like crazy. So hey, give me a bunch of salt and I'm good.
Well, so
Do
you
you
had,
like potato chips? Do you
I
like
do.
that? Like salty?
I mean,
Okay.
Lay's potato
do.
chips or Pringles is like a staple in a
Yeah.
run.
Yes.
Like
And
that's
watermelon. Watermelon
yes.
when it's hot.
I think I
And
took
we've
a
so
bag.
at Fort Frenzy, we don't do it so
Mhm.
much at Gone Loco because it's really cold there.
Yeah.
But Fort Frenzy, one of the big staples there is we do watermelon, but people absolutely love pineapple.
Pineapples.
Yes.
We do a
Mm.
ton of pineapples.
Love pineapples.
We actually take a swimming pool, a kid swimming pool,
Yeah.
and we fill it full of ice, and all we do is put pumpkins and watermelons and pineapples in it. We just fill it full, and then every couple of
Oh,
hours we chop one up
Yep.
that's
because
awesome.
it's in the middle of August, so
Oh yeah.
we try
Yeah.
to keep it ice cold.
100 degrees and 100% humidity out there. Pretty awesome.
Yeah, salted watermelon is great, and we love
Yes.
pineapple too. So, but so I want to ask you a question then. So you
Okay.
did, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 100 milers that you did
Mhm.
not finish.
Yes.
How
4, right?
scared?
4
What
and
was
then
going through your head?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
let's see.
4. Then then
4
finished it.
attempts and then yeah. Well, Brazos Bend, I was injured.
Yeah.
I had to pull from
Okay.
that one. Yeah.
Sorry, I just
But
saw 5 on there, but
yeah. Yeah.
so
So
the
Brazos was
bronze.
last year. That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
That was more,
Well,
I knew what that was about. I
okay.
had an
Let's.
injury that I kind of just went and said, okay, we'll see how long it holds, Yeah.
In
Yeah.
true
But
ultra runner fashion.
Yes. For 100 miles,
Send it.
it's
Send it.
it's gonna hurt.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's going to show up.
So you had. Let's go back then. You had
4
4
attempts.
100
Mhm.
miler attempts before Yeti.
Yes.
So what was that? So when you signed up for Yeti and
And
you
one of
show up,
those being Yeti the year before.
I saw that. So
Yeah.
lining up at the starting line at Yeti,
Yes.
what kind of emotion was that? Like, how are you feeling? I can't imagine what was going through your head with like 4 missed opportunities,
Yes.
to finish one.
I felt confident because working with Pat, we had 2 other races. I did the Yeti, the 50K, and then the farm one over in Greenville. And so that was a 100K distance I practiced with the nutrition. And those were very successful races for me. So I had a couple races practicing that, seeing that it worked, the whole process of the taper and the recover, because I was not good at that either. I would run a marathon and want to come back and run the next day.
So hey,
So
that's right down our alley.
That's right down there.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I
It's us.
knew I had physically seen it work. But I will say I was nervous, and I get nervous. I know it's silly at 47 years old. I toe the line, and maybe it's good that you get nervous. It means you care. But it was a lot of emotion. And I think too, this is my home turf. And so, I had failed the year before, and, you get pacers and you have people ready to help. And it was just devastating, but I really felt like I had found the missing puzzle piece with the nutrition. So I knew my training was good. I had a great, I did a 32 miler under an 8 minute pace. So I really felt ready. But of course you're nervous. And I think a 100 miler is just such a unique distance from the rest of them. Anything can go wrong. Weather can change. Something can come up. You just don't know. But, my faith is pretty big. And I just felt like I've done everything I can do. I've got a coach. I've learned nutrition. I'm physically ready. I've had a great training block. You just got to do it, right? You just got to get out there and do it. So, and honestly, I really didn't have a low point in that race. It was just really, it was a great race. I mean, I felt good the whole time. Yeah. So, but the 100 is definitely, it's unique. It's a unique beast. And, Brazos was tough. I think it's hard because, we plan our year and, being type A, you want it to go. If you're sick and it's on the calendar, I used to say, it doesn't matter. I'm going out and this is the run I'm doing. I've learned to be patient, to listen to my body. This year, Tunnel Hill, I was on track to do the 100. And I had a pretty big April. So I did, Boston, and then 2 weeks later I did Troublesome Hollow, Jason's the new 50K over on the Mendota Trail, and they were good races. It's funny, we always say A races, but gosh, you put me in a race, I'm competitive. Like I'm gonna go all out. It can't be a B race, like.
Oh yeah, I lose my mind at a starting line.
Yeah, and then you're gonna run this one for fun. Well,
nope.
Yeah, you get it. So the 50K, I ran with probably 2 or 3 guys, and then you do a fire road up to the fire tower, which is a ton of elevation and 3 miles. And it's not my style to hammer downhill, but one of them, beat me to the top, and I caught him with 7 miles to go. And, I hammered. And so I had just a lingering right hamstring. And I think it probably never fully healed. I just did more volume and not a ton of speed. We were patient with that until August and kind of started into everything. But about 3 weeks before Tunnel Hill, I didn't think I was going to be able to run the race. I developed a weird motor pattern change, probably guarding the hamstring. So like right foot was going out, right knee was wanting to go in, and it just caused lateral hamstring pain, calf tightness, glute wasn't firing, just very difficult, but I think we as ultra runners, we learn to push through stuff, and so I think we become numb to these things. And man, we have to be smart. And so we peeled back mileage. I did aqua jogging, which that's a new, see, I said, God's trying to teach me something. Aqua jogging is be awesome. So it's
hard.
Like you can run, you can do sprinting and intervals, but you don't have the impact. And it helped my brain change. Okay, the motor pattern's good. I did a steroid pack a week before Tunnel Hill. That helped the brain, right? So because it got rid of all the wonky pain and niggles and wiggles. And by golly, I think racing was the best thing I could have done, because every time I would go run, it's like, what do I feel? What's going wrong? What's wonky, So I felt like, okay, I can go and do the 50, let's just see what I can do. I didn't feel comfortable with 100, I don't think the hamstring is, up to 100% strength, but I know that it's not injured. I mean, I have a great PT here. My fiance is a chiropractor. So we've done all this testing, nothing strained. It's a motor pattern change, and you got to work through it. So I went and did the 50, it was a solid 50, and first 30 miles, like, you're in a race. You're not thinking about all these things, right? You just want to race. And I always say 3-week taper, it's like a horse out of the gate, like, oh my gosh, I get to run. So, all that to say, it's just, we're always learning. I am patient with my children. I am patient with people that I coach and train, but I am not patient when it comes to my training. So it's ever evolving, right? I mean, it's part of the sport. And I think that's where it's good to have a coach, because they keep you from wrecking yourself. you know, um, it's just important. So,
Yeah,
but
they
all
they
that to say, I would love, obviously there's lots of hundreds out there. And I think we all wrestle with expectations, or people know you've done this and they know that you're running this 100 and I'm letting people down. But David, your post about your why, I had to go back to my why. I don't run for other people, right?
yeah.
I run for, God has gifted me and he's given me this passion for running. And there's nothing wrong with racing 50 miles. I still get to go and race. So it's a learning process. And it wasn't my best 50. They're definitely, it'll get there, but you have to learn that you have seasons and journeys in your process. And my best that day might not be the same as what my best looked like 3 months ago, and you have to go and give your best, right? That's what
Well
makes you better.
said. Well said. I mean, your best on that day is what matters. And, that's the
Yes.
thing. When you wake up the next morning, you're not going to be like, oh, I wished I would have ran harder,
Yeah.
because you did.
Yes. Yes.
And it may not have been your best performance, but it's the best you had
Mm-hmm.
that day. Because I mean, and you said it, like, life is it's a struggle every day, and you have different seasons, just like
Mm-hmm.
racing. But a
Yeah.
lot of your racing is from your life season. And, like, this season's been really hard for me for racing. I've not had a lot of
Yeah.
races go my way.
Yeah.
But I've also had a lot of things happen in my life this season. I mean, I started out the whole year like in rhabdo and everything else, and
Yeah.
that's built onto this. And just like you saying Tunnel Hill wasn't your best 50, you
Mm-hmm.
still ran it in 7 hours. You were
Yeah.
still eighth female. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, it was your best that day. And that's the thing that you got to be proud of. And
Mm-hmm.
knowing your why makes a big difference in that, because when it is hard and when those times are tough, knowing why you're doing it and why you're out there, and whether it's for
Mm-hmm.
somebody else or it's for you,
Right.
that's the thing that's going to push you to that finish line. And it's amazing to kind of hear your story. And, a lot of people would have probably have given up with 4 failed attempts on a 100 miler. But
Yeah.
you come back on your 5th 100 miler, and, I don't want to skip past this. Like,
Okay.
you absolutely crushed this 100 miler. You were first overall, not first female. You were first overall. You won the whole race.
Yep.
I think you still have the course record for a female, and it was a
Mm-hmm.
very tough. I mean, that year, if I was lining up and I saw you, Mary Cates, and Becca Joyner beside me, I'm like, okay, it's gonna be a long day out here, because you all are,
Yeah.
are really athletic and you're great runners.
Mm-hmm.
So the competition that year was strong. So it's not like you weren't competing with anybody. I mean, you
Right.
had Mary and Becca chasing right behind you, I'm sure, the whole way, and over 100 miles. That's a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Um, But so did you lead that whole race, or did you have a strategy? Like, were you holding
Um,
back?
no, I'm not really a hold back type person. I feel like, okay, so, when you're coming down the mountain, I feel like you got to use that. You got to be smart. And I had a certain pace that I wanted to keep on the straightaways. And obviously, you got to climb back up the mountain. So, that's going to be slower. Um, so it's just, that was more my strategy. But I really think I try to run my race. I really don't ever, it's hard. Like, of course you're competitive and you might see someone pass you, but you have to stay within what's the plan. What's the plan for Amy? And I feel like I nailed that pretty well. Coming down the second time, I was able to, again, make up ground and go faster than going up. And those are all things you have to keep in mind, especially when, Tunnel Hill is very much that way. You're in the same rhythm, right? The same pattern for so long. So when you start climbing, it's a different muscle group. So it's like you really have to tell yourself, okay, you got to lengthen that stride going down the hill. And, those were things. I would say the first 30 miles, I was under an 8 pace in Tunnel Hill. And when we started up towards the tunnel, I just didn't feel as strong, going up and coming down. I couldn't even let go. And I think it was 6th in the 50, but when you can drop from the 100 and then your time just goes into the 50 miler. But I mean, there were 200-mile girls that passed me, like in that section. But again, I'm running my race. And I think that is so important too. You just got to give your best for that day. And the biggest thing about ultra running is just being out there with others, that we are all trying to do something hard. It's so just being a light and smiling and high-fiving and cheering those people on, seeing those people set world records that day. I mean, it's incredible, right? But we're all people. We're all humans. We are all out there, and everybody has stuff. And it got quiet. It was really weird because there was that big lead pack. And then I really was kind of by myself most of the day until we turned around, of course. And so, I'm smiling and high-fiving everybody. There's a lot more there than at the Yeti. But, it's just, but I know for me, like when it's quiet, you can get in your head. Like, gosh, like I should just stop and walk. So I know, like, people need that. I need it, right? So I know other people need that. And I think that's the biggest thing is we're all in it together. As competitive as I am, like, we're all out here trying to run 50 miles, or we're all out here trying to run 100 miles.
Yeah, I don't know how you run 50 or 100 miles without your phone, without music. I mean, if Matt didn't have his phone and he couldn't make a Snapchat post, I don't know what would happen. Like, we're in Ball State and my phone's going off, and I'm like, what is going on? And I open it up, and Matt sent me and Mike like 28 Snapchats as he's running down the highway. And I'm like, how do you have time for this?
Hey, I had to
maybe
do
it's just
something.
because I'm old and uncoordinated. I couldn't like take pictures, and I'm not that savvy. Maybe that's it.
I have to have music though. Like, I'm good for a couple hours, and then I just need music to like go into my world. Like, yep.
I usually don't have music during a race though. But during Vol State, I had to get my mind off how bad my feet hurt. So I'm snapping people, I'm calling people, and just trying to take my mind off my feet. They were awful. But during marathon and stuff, I usually have my headphones.
Well, what did it feel like to cross the finish line at Yeti for your very first 100?
Gosh. Just pure joy. And joy is not happiness. It's that place in between all of it. Just, I feel like I figured it out. Everything kind of came together. It was magical. It felt good,
I was gonna say that probably felt like a huge accomplishment. Like, just like I bet it felt like it took a huge burden off of you, right? Like,
yes. Like, okay, I'm not broke. There's not something wrong with me, like that I can't figure this out. I will say in the last 3 miles, my feet kind of hurt, like but I was happy all day, and my kids came out and saw me in different places. And it was pretty magical. I will say the Yeti 50 was pretty special. Both my girls, so I have 3 children, and both of them, they actually crewed, and Emma ran the last like quarter mile in with me. That one was pretty special too. And again, it wasn't a great training block. I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And it was my fastest 50 ever. So I just think you just got to show up. You got to be consistent, and you got to show up. Obviously, you have to be aware of injuries. I think it's a fine line. And of course, some people just want to finish. Like, if you're okay with being out for the next 4 months and finishing, I think you just have to, like you said, you have to know your why. But for me, I want to run forever. I love it. I love the fact that you can put on shoes. Like, I don't know about you all, but when I travel, I love to just run new places. I feel like we get to see things some people will never see their whole life.
Oh yeah.
You wish you could bottle it up and share it, you know? I
Yeah,
don't know. That brings me, I mean, it just makes my heart smile.
yeah, there's something about being on a trail to me, especially like a new
Yeah.
trail, and then you get to a view or you get to a
Yeah.
waterfall, and you're just like, this is awesome.
Yep.
Yeah.
Especially like when you're in just a whole new area. I mean, it's my peaceful side. Like it's where I get my mindfulness. It's, I need
Mm-hmm.
it for my mental health, and it's
Yes.
become a part of me. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's been interesting for me the last few weeks because I still can't run from no business, from
Yeah.
the injury. So
Yeah.
I'm trying to work out. I'm trying to do other things, but it's not
Aqua
the
jogging.
same. Maybe that's what I need to start doing.
That's how you can run. You can run right there. Aqua
Aqua
jogging.
jogging.
You got a pool out here. Go ahead, jump
That's
in your
true.
cold pool and
You know how
run back
cold
and
that
forth.
pool is.
Hey, you can cold plunge while you do your aqua jogging.
I'll have to go off the diving board just to get started.
Hey, just don't go in the deep end because you may lock up and go to the bottom.
Be reading about me in the newspaper.
Yeah, I'm like, hey, David ain't snapped us or talked to us in a couple of days. Where's he at? Come over here and find him in the pool.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
so damn Yeti, you were first place too overall. So you absolutely killed that race, 6 hours 18 minutes. So
yeah.
you just conquered Yeti in those 2 years, didn't you? 21 you just crushed the 100-miler,
Big
and
year.
22 you crushed the 50-miler. That's
Yeah.
pretty impressive.
But in February between those, I did Black Canyon, and that technical racing it's not that I would love to be better at it. I just, with life and kids, just to get to those trails and to practice them all the time, I don't get to. But, I drove to Damascus and was on the AT a lot training for that. It was an extremely hot year, but very rocky. I mean, extremely rocky. And it was tough. But you know what? I think I finished in 13 hours. I gritted it out. I didn't, I wasn't hurt. I did run out of water. And that's rough when it's hot. I mean, but again, it was so cool to experience that trail and that race. And, it's a big one. But again, came out of there, and that's when I went into training for the Yeti. So failure breeds success, I always say. You learn from those experiences, and I know it those failures grow you a lot. You learn maybe things you didn't know before. Like I said, I think you have to remain a student in your sport. You have to.
Yeah, and
Things change.
you got to accept failure.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Absolutely.
that's the thing that's the hardest sometimes is accepting that you're just not going to have a good day, and some days it's going to be really hard, and
Mm-hmm.
it can happen on race day.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's where you just have to tell yourself like it's going to be a long day, and I'm
Yes.
just going to do what I can. And I mean, you just, and I say this a lot. I've even got it tattooed on my arm. But you fail until you don't. And
Yes.
I mean, you're a great example of that for those 100-milers. And I mean, and when you got it right, you got it right. You absolutely come back and just, absolutely conquered that race. I mean, that's just awesome.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears just a little bit. What has been your hardest race? Now, when I say hard, I'm going to say like pain cave or like mentally, like when you were in a race, like what's been your hardest race for you to struggle through or not struggle through? Even if you DNF'd it, that's fine.
Yeah. That's a tough one. Black Canyon would be up there. I would say Black Canyon was probably my toughest.
Okay, and how come?
Just the terrain. I don't know. There were just places like I can't get in a groove here. Like I'm gonna fall and break my neck. Like just it got really hot, which I don't mind heat, but when you run out of water, there was just a lot of things I had to keep pivoting and adjusting and changing. Okay, what am I going to do? And had to walk some. That's really hard for me. But I learned from that. It's okay. You just got to keep moving forward, right? I mean, we tell our kids that. We tell the people we coach that. Just as long as you keep moving forward. But when you're doing that and it's hard.
Well, and especially after coming off, like here's the thing: is like you go crush 100-miler.
Yes.
You have this expectation, like, okay, I've got this. I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah.
There's nothing going to stop me. I'm going to run my race, and I'm going to do the best I can.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, I'm walking, or it's this isn't what I expected, or hey, I have a stomach problem, and that's You said it perfectly, though. You kept adjusting. You kept pivoting. You kept trying to figure out what to do to get through the race. And I mean, you finished, and you finished it in 13 hours, which for 100K in Black Canyon, that's pretty good finish. But so you said you kept pivoting, but how was you mentally? How were you dealing with that? Were you struggling?
I mean, yes, I remember coming into an aid station, and Todd was crewing me there, and I'm like, this is hard. This is really hard. I said, but I'm going to get it done. He's like, okay. It's just, but I'm pretty mentally tough, lots of talks with God out there. Or I try to say, okay, this next mile, I'm going to run this for Emma, my daughter. I'm going to think about Emma. She knows I'm out here. She knows I'm not going to quit. It's a lot of self-talk, because like we can beat ourselves up between our ears. I mean, you have to turn those negative thoughts into positive thoughts. It's constantly, and that's in life too, right? I mean, we want our kids to grow and be strong mentally. And I think, I don't know, but it is hard when you're used to running or you're not used to suffering, so when you find yourselves in those places, you got to turn it around. I don't know. It's like you have to do it.
Yep. Well, I mean, and it's a struggle. Like, it's always going to be like, no race is ever going to be exactly perfect.
No.
Some races go really good.
Right.
And then the next race it can go really bad. And you're right. Like, mentally, like, you have to be ready for that. And, or you're going to drop from the race, or you're going to give into it, or you're going to tell yourself, I can't run no more, when honestly you did. And then when you wake up the next morning, that's when you're like, man, how did I quit? Like, and that sticks with you. And this is one of the things I do in almost every race that I've ever ran. Like, this gets me every time. Anything that's over like 20 hours, when I'm like 15, 16 hours in, I just start like going in my head, and I'm having problems. But the thing I always tell myself is, this is going to be over real quick in the grand scheme of things. Me not finishing, that's going to stick with me forever. And that's the thing that always kind of gets me through, no matter how much pain I'm in. I'm just kind of like, it'll be over soon, and I'll forget all this pain. But what I won't forget is stopping or quitting or DNFing. And I mean, no business. It still bothers me. And I was injured, but it still bothers me. Like, I do not like that. It was my very first DNF. So it sticks with you.
The first one. That's hard. Right. But you're injured, right? And you want to run for a long time.
Well, and it humbled me. It humbled me very much. One of the things that I caught on to after this is, there's a gentleman named Rob Apple.
Okay.
Now, Rob Apple has the Guinness World Record. He runs our races. He runs Tony and Kathy's races for Magic Number events. He's a cool dude. But he's already got the Guinness World Record for the most ultras ever. But he will hit 800 in January. I think 800.
Oh, wow.
And he's just an awesome guy to talk to. But one of the things that I had never really noticed with him until I DNF no business, if you ask him, like, what number you on, Rob? He'll say 790 whatever. And what number will this one be for you? He'd be like, well, if I finish. I've never, ever, ever said that in a race.
No.
And now I sit here and I think that's pretty amazing that a guy that's done almost 800 ultras still to this day, even in a 50K, will say, if I finish. And that's where I had to like do a reset of myself and think, I got to quit having an expectation that I'm just going to finish a 100-miler or that I'm going to finish a 50-miler, because it's kind of a gift to be out there running anyways, and you can't always expect everything to be perfect. And being gritty is a whole lot different than being injured, and like you don't want to cause, you don't want to tell yourself to keep running in something where you're going to further injure it.
Right.
So there's a fine line between between having grit and pushing yourself and not giving in to not running on an injury that's going to cause you to not be able to run for the next year.
Right.
And that is a difference. But even to that point, like, you have to step back and think, I have an expectation for myself. And if that expectation doesn't go the way I want it to go, how am I going to handle that? And we talked about this a little bit in the last podcast, and it's interesting to think about, because like Yeti, you walk up, you win that race. I mean, you win it outright. And then you go to Black Canyon and you're humbled yourself.
Right.
And because you have this expectation, you're like, oh, I killed this 100-miler. This 100K is going to be nothing. And unfortunately that's how we think. And that's what I love so much about this sport. It resets you real quick, and it will make you humble, because it's just like life. You never know what's going to happen when you show up at that starting line. Just like you don't know what tomorrow is going to be like until you wake up and you start that day. It's a whole new journey. So when you finished Black Canyon, were you excited about that, or were you upset about that? Like, how was your emotion that day?
I really, again, just joy, because I knew what I fought through to finish, and I knew that it was not my strong suit, this course. This was kind of a growth time for me. Did I think obviously I wanted to do better. I think I had planned for maybe 10 and a half hours, but I was proud because of all the adversity I worked through. And that is a win, because it grew me. It taught me, okay, how do you deal with not having water for 3 miles in the desert, So I was very proud of that. And I will say it's taken me time to get there, because I am really hard on myself, and I am very competitive. And like I said, very type A. So that's not, you have to, it grows you. I mean, I think with years of doing it, we learn these things, which is good, right? I mean, we're able to share these things with others. And I think that's the most important thing. I love people. I love to see people do hard things. I love to see people be successful. So I think that's a big thing, is just to be a light and be transparent and share these things, because, I think sometimes people think, oh, it's always easy for you. She runs fast. It's easy for her, but I have difficulties too, and I have bad runs, and I have stuff in life, but I think I think those races are just as equally special as Yeti. For sure.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like, there's not one person out there in that 100-mile race that's not hurting.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it doesn't matter how great of a runner you are. There is not one person out there that is not hurting. So you're not the only person. And that's what, that's the thing, is like, we all get this thought in our head of like, oh, well, so, my leg's hurting and I'm only 40 miles in, I got another 60. Well, I guarantee you that half the field out there, their leg is hurting, so it's kind of, a wake-up call sometimes to think about, you got 300 runners standing there beside you. Well, everybody's going through something. Everybody. And
Yeah.
everybody is battling their own demons, and everybody's going to have a different day. The best runner out there may not be the runner that wins the race.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
that's the thing, is it's anybody's day.
Yes.
And that's a thing that I have to remember going forward too, because I've been putting an expectation on myself when I line up at the starting line, and that's causing, more stress than it should. And it also causes you to be disappointed. And that's the thing, is in the middle of a race, so-and-so is not doing great. I'm not hit my time. I'm not at the spot when I said I would be. And then I'm trying to pivot or change my thought. But at the same time, I've already created that expectation. So I'm already mad at myself because I put all this time into training.
Right.
But the training is actually, that's where it's at. I mean, that's the fun. That's where, regardless of how the race goes, you did everything you could to that point, and you've got to be proud of that. One bad race doesn't make the year. It doesn't make the runner. It doesn't mean everything that you did is going to be forgotten, or that you're going to be disappointed. You got to remember everything you accomplished to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to do some of them long runs on a Saturday with kids,
it's hard.
That's an accomplishment in itself sometimes, and I mean, but at the same time, you need that. And, for you, and I mean, Matt's got 2 very little kids, and him and Brittany juggle that, and they balance life and they balance running, and they both get it done. But there's joy in that, and there's the accomplishment of being a team and helping each other through that. And I mean, they do it great,
which is
and
awesome.
regardless of how the race went, that's a moment that that they get to share, as far as they share something together. And one cool thing they got to do in Firewater, Matt had a really bad race.
Really bad.
Yeah,
really bad
listen
race.
to that one.
But the good thing that come out of that was him and Brittany got to run through that finish line together. And I mean, they've spent all this time training separately, not doing training runs together, but they got to finish the race together, and that's pretty dang awesome.
Special.
Yeah, it was.
That's a unique thing there.
Yep.
Having a partner that's doing it. Yeah, when my kids were little, Matt, I ran in the dark most of the time.
Yep. Yeah.
You do what you have to.
You do what you got to do. But your kids see that, and I think you're teaching them valuable life lessons. That's incredible.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
And that's the thing I've always told my daughter. Like, when she talks about signing up for a sport, I'm like, I don't care. You can play whatever you want to play, but we're going to follow all the way through with it.
Yep, if you sign up, you're in it till the end.
Right, and she's seen us do that. She's seen Matt do that. She's seen me do that, Mike do that, because when we say we're going to do something, no matter how hard it is, she saw us run some pretty hard races, and she's been there cheering for us, and she's seen us finish it. So she knows when I tell her that I'm being serious. Like, oh, Dad, I want to do this sport. I'm like, I'm in. You better be too.
Addie gets to experience basketball now. We just had tryouts and drafts last Saturday, and of course I get to be the coach, so I get to try to wrangle little
you'll have to shave the beard.
I get to wrangle little
that beard scares little kids.
I think they want to play with it. They always come up and try to yank on it. Is what they do. So I get to wrangle pre-K through first grade little girls around. I've never coached girls before. It's always been little boys. Like my brother has
they're easier. Son. Girls are easier. I've coached boys. I prefer girls. They listen a lot better, and they're not as crazy in the gym. I was gonna say, when I was coaching, so I did the upward for boys and girls, and the boys would be like a Chinese fire drill out here, like people just running around everywhere, and I'm like, and the girls are all standing in a line waiting, like, what do we do next? I'm like, oh, this is so much better.
Well, I hope that's how they are. Because you're right, them boys are crazy. They run around everywhere.
Well, Amy, I'm going to see if Matt can find this list of questions.
Yeah, I got a few questions here.
because he's probably already lost the list, or he won't be able to log in here in a minute.
No, I got him here.
Everybody's probably heard the story of how Matt lost the list in the very first episode, but
Well,
I won't go into that.
I didn't lose the list.
You did lose it. We were down on our hands and knees underneath the table looking for this list.
David had the list. All right, so just checking, making sure we didn't have any more.
Oh wow, you got a lot of questions.
Yeah, we got a few here. I think we, like usual, we've already answered some of these questions. What is your nutrition of choice, such as hydration and food? I think we went over that. That was Goo Roctane. Your hardest race overall would have been Black Canyon. How has your overall running experience been?
Overall running experience. Oh, I'm not sure what angle we're taking on it. Like just in general running?
Just in general. Since you started running till now, how's it been?
I think great. And I think there are a lot of people that would say as you get older, you get slower. It's not the same. Like I said, I'm 47 and I don't care to say I'm kind of in that menopausal area. But I feel like when I trained for Boston, perfect example, I was seeing speed workouts be at the same speed as when I trained 10 years ago for that race. People are getting faster. And as you know, in those big races, I was in the first corral, first wave. This time it was like second corral or second wave, sixth corral. I mean, it was like bob and weave. I didn't have to do that the first time I ran Boston. So that just tells you people are getting way faster. I think people just need to run and train and not feel, especially with women, not feel, yes, you have to be aware you are changing, but man, I feel I love speed. I can't wait for speed workout days. Like, I just think I'm getting better and better. And I think there's a myth that needs to be debunked. Yes, we get older, but that doesn't mean you can't train hard. You may have to change how you periodize your training or how often or miles, but we can still race hard. That would be my advice.
Well, that kind of goes right into the next question because it was, how has your training changed as you've become a master's athlete?
So I would say, I'm probably running, my sweet spot. I have done 100-mile week. I know Mary does. She's gotten up in the hundreds. I've never really been there. In fact, when I trained for road races, 70 might have been my highest, but now, my sweet spot, I can get to 85, 86 on the biggest weeks. But I do 2 days with strides and usually have one big quality session. So I don't always do 2 days of speed work. Some people do it Tuesday, Thursday. But it periodizes. But, I think everybody's different. Sometimes it's life stress, what you've got going on. But I'm probably running more now than I did 10 years ago as far as volume.
That's awesome.
That is.
Yeah.
And that also means you're healthy.
Yes.
Shoo, got one. I'm telling you. So my baby is a 10th grader. So got a 21-year-old. Grace she is a freshman this year. She is playing rugby.
Oh, wow.
And then, Emma's, she's 15, getting ready to get a learner. So David, you understand that. Whew.
Rugby sounds really dangerous.
Yeah, we don't have rugby here. Not at our school. We don't have
my daughter plays golf and basketball, not rugby.
Oh, yeah. Rugby's pretty extreme, I will tell you.
I bet that's fun to watch.
It's a lot of fun to watch. Yeah.
So the next one is, what is your perspective of doing East Coast races compared to out west? I'm not sure how many you've done out west, but is it easier or harder in the 100-mile area or just different races?
I would say obviously it maybe depends on the race, whether you're doing a technical. I've paced at Western States. I did Zion. I've been out to Javelina. I think Javelina is very runnable. I had an injury out there and obviously wasn't on point with the nutrition. I would love to actually go back. I really think the 100K may be my big race that I want to do, or my longer one this next coming year. I'd love to go back there. I love out west. I think those trails they're different. They're not Rocky and Rudy.
Yeah.
So I think in that aspect, I feel like I don't want to say easier, just smoother. Does that make sense?
Well, that's
you guys
kind of
know what
like
we have on the East Coast.
Yeah,
I
there's
definitely
nothing
will
smooth
say
over here.
no, there's not smooth over here.
But I think when I was on the red team for Ultra for 5 years, and of course they kind of reassembled and changed, and all these things do. And I love their shoe. I feel like they bettered my mechanics, and I still run in them. I think sometimes you feel pressure to do these big name races, and I would say, in fact, I was kind of on point to do the two that you all do in the Fort Frenzy and the dirt circuit. Is that right?
Yep.
I would love. In fact, I just signed up for Gone Loco, but I think I would say to people, if you have an opportunity to go somewhere you haven't been, it's awesome. But I also think we need to embrace what's right around us. And I think sometimes sometimes that you do feel pressure, like you want to go to these bigger ones. But I mean, look, I was at Tunnel Hill, which is a big race, but I still was running by myself most of the day. So I think people get caught up in wanting to do the bigger ones. But I think just take it race to race. Maybe you want to take a trip and build it around somewhere you've never been, but also look local. Look somewhere that you can drive and get to, because I think it's fun to be on the East Coast, and it's, really in this space, it's a small circle. We think it's like so huge, but that would be my advice. But I don't know, I think our East Coast trails are pretty tough.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, it's funny to think about the trail running, like the ultra running community in general.
Yes.
It really is a small circle.
It is.
I mean, it's, you look at, and I'm sure you all are the same way. If I look at my Facebook, like 90% of the people that are on my Facebook are people that I run with, or people that I've met at races. And they're from all over the U.S., which is kind of cool that, it's that tight of a community that people know each other. It's awesome. The camaraderie and everything in ultra running, especially trail ultra running, is just, it's so cool.
Yeah, I would agree.
So I think the last one would be, what is your actual next race that you've got planned?
Well, Gone Loco.
Gone Loco.
In February.
That's awesome. So we do lie a little bit in our ultra sign up page. It's not 33 miles; it's 35. But we just want you to know that
we put the 55K in small letters. Kind of hide it.
So here's the honest truth.
Yes.
We started the race before they extended it.
Oh.
So we were like trying to get this race thrown together. We were trying to get everything ready, because it's very much it's a mini Virginia Creeper Trail.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they were telling us they were going to do this extension, and we're like, oh, great. Will it be done by the time the race starts? They're like, oh, yeah, not a problem. Yeah. And they told us the mileage. So we put the race in for that mileage. Well, it had been a little longer than that, but we've just left the ultra sign up as 33, and it's just a special gift that we give all the runners, an extra 2 miles.
2 bonus miles. That's right.
We do tell everybody before they hit the starting line that it's actually like 35 miles, but it's okay.
Yeah. Oh man, all the other people, those planners are going to be like, wait.
You've got Mary excited because she's wanting to run that race too.
Oh, good.
So she's like, good, I'll get to run with Amy.
That's right.
That'll be awesome.
That will be awesome.
I think that'll be a very competitive female field.
Yeah, Matt will be heartbroken because
hey, I've run it every year.
Matt's tried to win that race for like the last 3 years.
I came very close last year. Very close. Like
Now,
2
and you
minutes.
love
I
marathoning.
got a feeling the trophy's going to a female in 2024.
That's fine. I'm racing against myself.
That's right.
Well, I haven't loved marathoning.
Okay.
I've done 2 or 3.
Okay.
I've done 3 marathons for the whole time I've been running. I did 6 hours and 50 Ks before all that craziness.
Yeah.
And then so now this year we're going to start with the actual marathon, like really marathon training.
Yeah.
And see if we can get a little faster.
And I'm going to do my first marathon next year, but I'm not going into a training block like him. I'm going to do the Chattanooga Marathon. So that
we can race together.
my first
Chattanooga. And I did the Knoxville Marathon before, COVID shut everything down. I was trying to qualify, which I qualified for Boston, but of course, you know what happened those couple of years.
That's how'd you do
hilly
it?
one.
It is.
Knoxville, I think it was 3:13 I ran. It was like 4th female. That's a hilly one,
That's
though.
awesome.
It's very hilly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one thing that come up that I haven't got a chance to talk to you about yet. But someone asked us if we could make Gone Loco a Boston qualifier. So I think we should get that course certified.
Well,
and
we
do
got
that.
to certify it and get that.
That would
distance.
be a really good course to qualify.
It would be. It would be.
That's an ultra runner's dream. Qualify for marathon and an ultra. That's what Yeti Spaghetti, the 50 miler I did. That's how I qualified for Boston.
Oh, that's awesome. See, I mean, and we have a course that's, of course, our uphill isn't as steep as that, but it's it's a fast course. We had our very first year, I think that gentleman still has the course record for the 11.5 miles. Yep. He ran it in just a little over an hour.
Oh my gosh.
It was like an hour and 10 or 11 minutes.
He's pretty quick.
I mean, he absolutely crushed it, and he still has the course record. So it's a really fast course. You're going to love it. Yeah. It really is. Yeah. It's super fast. It's right down your alley after listening to you run, or after you listen to you talk about your speed and running. So you're gonna love it.
Oh, and what are the temperatures like? Decent.
Negatives.
It's
negatives. Negative 20s and rain.
It's not that cold, but it's usually like upper 30s.
Okay.
So it's kind of chilly, and then it warms up during the middle of the day. But that morning, it'll be in like the upper 30s.
Is that before or after the rain?
It does rain some.
Matt, you're trying to scare me. I don't think you can scare me.
Oh, Debbie Downer over here.
I'm just telling you what I've ran in over there.
He honestly don't remember because he's usually puking somewhere on that.
The first year I ran in rain. The second year I ran in like 20-degree temperatures. And then last year it was 20-degree temperatures plus rain. So that's what I've got the last 3 years. But it's great.
But you train and all that, so you're ready for it. Right?
Yeah.
Well,
it's really only
bad gear.
The course is only 15 minutes from our house.
Yeah, it's not.
So we're there.
Wow.
Pretty easily.
Yeah, and we kind of spoil our runners too. I mean, we literally have an aid station in 3 different spots on this course. So you don't go more than like 3 miles without an aid station.
It's only 5.5 miles.
And we have 3 aid stations.
And you got 3 aid stations.
Yeah.
So
that's awesome.
You don't even have to run with a water bottle if you don't want to, but we recommend it.
I just carried a handheld this year, and I ran the fastest. Last 2 years I had a pack. You don't need a pack. You don't need a pack.
Well, I'm going to finish this episode with a quick closeout for, let me pull this up real quick and I'm going to read it. So for people that don't know, Hunt Brumby, I want to close with this, and that way we all support him and get it out there. But in early October, Hunt was diagnosed with stage 3 rectal cancer. And Hunt is a guy that's been in the ultra scene for a while. I met him at a John Harden race for Hardwin Adventures. And him and John are pretty good friends, and Hunt's just amazing. He's done Vol State and finished it, and he's become a pretty good ultra runner over the years. He's just a great guy. But there's an event that John has created to help raise money for him and his family. And it's called Run for Hunt. It's on Ultra Sign Up. And this is a virtual race. It'll be December 9th. So East Coast Adventures is going to put together an event on the Eureka Trail, which is where we host Gone Loco. But we're going to do a fun run that morning, December 9th, for anybody that wants to join us. But if you don't mind, just go to Run for Hunt on Ultra Sign Up, take a look at it. There's different options to donate money for him. Or if you don't even want to run, you can go to his GoFundMe. We'll try to make some notes on the show notes down there for everybody if you want to donate. But just keep him in your thoughts and prayers. But remember, it's Run for Hunt, December 9th. And it's dedicated to raising funds for Hunt, who is bravely facing cancer. And if you want to come run with us for that event, you're welcome to join us. Just come, whether you sign up for the race or not. If you want to come out and show support for him, we would absolutely love that. December 9th, and we'll be sharing that event on Facebook. Well, Amy, thank you so much for your time. This has actually been a really fun conversation, and it's awesome getting to know you. So thank you so much for be willing to be on our podcast.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Amy.